So next up in this series is how it's shown, the animation and artwork. Given how this is the first anime to be broadcasted in color, this is an important factor they had to deal with, as most shows before it are black and white. And this series doesn't fail to disappoint in terms of landscape. Even in basic color for most of them, there's a lot of vibrance that can be seen here. From the wide landscape of the desert and its blinding sunshine, to the thick, dark reaches of the Congo Basin. The time of day is also important too. Yellows, oranges, and reds showing very prominently during sunset, and the contrast of blue, gray, and black during the night. Details on the background are top-notch if you ask me, and they make sure it's something worth looking at. But then we get to the character designs which, well, it really depends on who. Sure, they're simplified given the style of the show, but I do say that each of them are pretty prominent to their real-life counterparts. There's nothing too exaggerated or too ugly to look at unless they really wanted to try. However, there are times where they can be kinda off. For some reason, the series has an odd habit of making the background characters have these weird, derpy, crisscross eyes, making them look dumb in the head. I don't know why they keep doing this, but I suppose it's something that can be glossed over. As for the animations, and probably would be expected from a series this old, recycling is a very prominent thing here. The most notable animation is Kimba's running cycle, which they have at least 3 to 5 different types used over and over again. The movements aside from that are kind of inconsistent. Sometimes it's smooth, while other times they kind of just freeze frame by frame on the spot. But then again, this is a common thing in any anime today, so I'm not gonna fault it for it. And next up, we got the characters themselves. What makes any show really what it is. As you could probably guess, there is a lot, and I mean a lot, of characters. But since most of these are typically one-off ones, I'm just gonna go over the main ones in full, and get the overall thoughts on the rest later. The first one, of course, is Kimba the White Lion. Kimba is shown to be a caring, kind, and brave individual, someone worthy of his father's throne and showing all the main traits of a good leader. Sure, he had a few hiccups here and there, but nobody's perfect. Though, as the series does go on, this naiveness and his childlike demeanor do come off a bit more out of place as time goes by, especially with episodes way down the line. I did figure out something though. There were 3 other characters that do show up in the show: Dot, Dash, and Dinky. Think of them like the 3 stooges of this world. If you see these 3 with Kimba, then the Kimba in those episodes is more naive and more like a child. I can guess that these 3 were part of Kimba's childhood days, you know, after he first arrives in the jungle. And the episodes involving them like this show Kimba at his younger age, where other episodes don't. So this is more fault on the episode placement rather than Kimba himself. As for the supporting cast, we got Polly Cracker, Bucky, and Daniel Baboon, each one acting as a close friend to Kimba. Daniel is the old caretaker, being the father figure towards Kimba. Many of his scenes have him as a wise and caring individual, having known his father personally and taking care of Kimba as if he were his own son. Bucky Antelope is more of a dim-witted yet meaningful type. Sure, he's not the smartest animal in the jungle, but he is more than willing to lend a hoof in helping Kimba out with his ideas. And then we got Polly Cracker, which is actually my favorite of the bunch. He holds a lot of respect and care towards Kimba, but he also acts a bit more impulsive and quick to anger at times. Sure, he can be a bit silly, as it is a part of his gimmick, but he is also a surprisingly good voice of reason when needed to be, making him pretty well-rounded. Now, with protagonists, there's antagonists. And for this series, that goes to King Claw, Cassius the Panther, and the hyena duo Tom and Tap. Starting with King Claw, he is the main leader of the four, and the more prominent antagonist in comparison. But, let's be honest, he is more brawn than brain. Being very prideful and aggressive, these traits was what often leads to his downfall. Oh, and his affection towards Kimba's girlfriend, Kitty, of course. For example, in one episode, he manages to convince a local hippo to try and get rid of Kimba, but completely wrecks his own plan when he finds how he also hurt Kitty in the process, thus exposing the plan and kinda ditching the whole idea. So no, he's not the smartest villain out there, but good hired muscle. The brains of the outfit belong to Cassius, which I can say is more evil than Claw is. He has extensive knowledge about the dark works of the jungle and often the one working out the plans to get rid of Kimba himself. Episodes following his plans are a bit better suited for the job, and he's clearly the smarter one of the two, not to mention a lot more ruthless. One episode he tries to hire an owl to try and handle his work, but when she refuses, he nearly kills her until she tries to comply. And he barely got fazed by it either, so yeah, he's more evil. And then there's Tom and Tap, the Tweedledee and Tweedledum of the group. They're not exactly smart nor strong like the other two are, but basically the evil henchmen to Claw and Cassius. What's funny about this is that they have a lot more screen time than Cassius and Claw do, either spying on Kimba and company or just out doing their own thing, or moving the plot forward. There are some other characters that do show up, though they don't really have that big of an impact on the plot. A character I do want to point out of this, though, is Kelly Font the Elephant. To be fair, he doesn't have that much screen time as other characters do in the original series, and he's put in the same boat as other characters like Samson the Buffalo and Boss Rhino. Someone who doesn't believe in humans and doesn't trust them, well, at all. Though I can understand why, especially considering his kind is usually involved in the ivory trade, if you know what I mean. I want to point him out in particular because not only is he more ruthless than the others are, but he's also more prominent throughout the franchise as a whole, him playing a role in almost all other adaptations of the series. You're gonna hear me talk about him again in future, I can assure you that. As for everyone else, they're typically played off as generic in their craft, and while they do have some kinks to their behavior, it isn't too important to the plot really. In the overall aspect anyway. For the characters that do show, I'm not saying each one of them is horribly done. There's this one hippo character named Clunker that does show up, and he has the best reaction to a court session ever.
This whole trial's a big laugh. I think I'll take a nap. Wake me up when it's all over.
If we sat here and talked about every character in full, we'd be here all month. So I'm just gonna leave it at that and go on from here. The soundtrack for the series can really set up the tone for the scenes it's a part of, though in truth it's mostly trumpet chorus and orchestration cues. Most of the episodes don't really have that much music in them, but when they do, they never fail to disappoint in setting the mood up for any scene they're in. As with music, there's also the musical numbers.
My name is Tab.
To be honest, the songs in Kimba the White Lion aren't as prominent as you might think. The English dub for Kimba had many of these songs typically cut out for performance sake, and those that were kept in, well...
My name is Tom.
Tab is my name.
Strong guys are tall.
The weak ones are small.
Stop singing!
Yeah, they're not the best. There's attempts to sing, and then there's just reading lyrics, and many of these songs suffer from the latter. There's only one song that I know of that kept the Japanese original tune, and that was the song The Owl's Lullaby, from The Giant Grasshopper, which the narrator jots down to it being owl language instead of Japanese. It's one of those times where it's good enough by itself.
約おやすみこ
I've held this part off for long enough. I saved this one for last because, I'm just gonna say it, it's not the best work ever. Yeah, this is made way back in the 60s, so technology wasn't as grand yet, but it's still a fault to be said. The voices each character has sounds pretty much the same overall, and it sounds like it's done by just a few people. And this is most notable with characters that only appear a few times or just one-off in general. If you close your eyes and listen, it's hard to figure out who's who.
I'll run you greenhorns any day, any time.
I'm coming with you.
Then shake a leg, my boy. I promise. I was just looking for something to eat. I was hungry. You can't see the woods for the trees, you whippersnapper.
Lucky for them and everybody else, though, the voices themselves aren't too bad at all, honestly. Though they do sometimes suffer from exposition dumps. I think that's really because so they can keep up with the mouth movements, which isn't the easiest thing to do in anime. So there you have it. All the 5 points regarding the original Kimba the White Lion series. And does this series hold up? I'd have to say, yes. This series is a true piece of art, leagues ahead of its time with what they do. Sure, the songs can be a bit annoying and the voices aren't the best, but it's enough to really make this series terrible. Nothing in this series really left me infuriated enough to keep me away, and with what bad there is, there's always something good enough to keep me going. Some episodes still have some more bad than good, yes, but on contrast, there are episodes that come off as simply beautiful, and some not afraid to tackle more mature audience issues. This is inspiration for the time ahead, and trust me, there's plenty more to go through.